2019, and invite you to join with us in the salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of fire, there are two ways that you may exit the chambers. To my left, through the double doors, turn left down the flight of stairs. At the base of the stairs, again, turn left, and directly outside of the building. Or perhaps the best and quickest way would be at the rear of these chambers through the double doors, down the flight of stairs. But in either case, once you're outside of the building, walk a safe distance away from the building. The Secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Duran.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott is absent. Virginia Higley, absent. Ken Nelson.
Here.
Linda DeGray, absent. John Petronella, absent. Guillermo Salazar, absent. And Richard Suzak is here.
Okay. Quorum is 4, and so we do have that at least, and we have 5. But in any case, in any vote, if you want us to vote differently, we can hold it off till the next meeting or so. That's up to you, or the applicants. Approval of minutes of March 14th.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of March 14th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any errors or omissions or additions?
Didn't see any.
Hearing none, all in favor? Yeah, 6, right? 5, I'm sorry. 500. I'll get back.
Oh, we got to do the aquifer.
Beg your pardon?
Do we have to open it, though?
No,
No, okay.
it was you posted it as canceled, right? Yeah. At this point in the meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions regarding planning and zoning in the town of Enfield from anyone who's present, provided you may not discuss any matter of business at this time that is elsewhere on this evening's agenda, any matter that's part of an open public hearing of this commission, or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending. Is there anyone who'd like to address the commission under those conditions? Anyone like to address the commission under those conditions? Last call to address the commission under those conditions. Hearing none, we shall move on to
Bond releases.
bond releases. There's a bond release at 100 Elm Street. Alliance Energy, it's a special permit on an existing gasoline service station and a new drive-through restaurant, various improvements at 100 Elm Street. And you have a site restoration bond of the amount of $35,100 and a landscaping bond of $19,700. Do I have a motion? And you have a letter of approval, I believe, in your packet.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Lori, do you want us to do separate bonds on each, or a separate vote on each? We have in the past.
I'm sorry, it's always safer to do that.
Okay, just checking, okay. So, you're doing the site restoration bond and $35,100?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And that's what I'm seconding.
all right. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. And now the landscaping bond.
Make a motion to approve the landscaping bond for release.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? It's unanimous. Or, well, it's not unanimous. It's 500. No old business, new business. Public hearing of 33 Post Office Road. Secretary, please take the roll and read the legal notice. And the applicant, if you're here, be prepared to come up here and present your plan.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 28th, 2019, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2938, 33 Post Office Road, site plan review application for a general business and wholesale warehousing and distribution use with a new building and associated parking. Clarence K. owner, Pioneer Valley Fiberglass Pools and Spa, co-owned by Clarence K. Applicant, map 47, lot 30, industrial I-1 zone. Charles Duran.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lafakis.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Please, your name and address for the record.
My name is Merrick Kemet, professional engineer and land surveyor with Anchor Engineering, 41 Sequin Drive in Glastonbury, Connecticut. Also here with me is the owner of the property, Clarence K. Unfortunately, our attorney could not make it here tonight, so I will be doing the presentation before you. As you know, this is an application, originally it was submitted as a site plan review. Excuse me. And I believe this committee felt it was necessary to have a public hearing, so here we are. The purpose of this is to get an application so we can actually market the property. The owner of the property originally wanted to have his facility in Enfield. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out, and now he just wants to take the property and be able to market the property moving forward. The site is approximately 3 acres in the industrial I-1 zone, surrounded all by I-1 and the I-2 zone. It's located at the corner of Post Road and Post Office Road, right near the Interstate 91. You can almost see it right off the highway. The land is fairly flat. It's got a large pond towards the rear of the property, and there is associated wetlands. We do have approval from the Wetlands Committee back in November 20th of 2018. The site originally was a residence with several outbuildings and historically was used as a bait shop. The project itself has been scaled back numerous times. Originally, we had proposals for buildings all the way to the rear of the property. Another phase was that cutting that back and having fiberglass pools stored at the center of the property. And our final iteration before you is scaled completely back to just having a building with a parking lot associated with it. Most of the structures have been removed, including the house, under a demolition permit. The one structure that remains is fairly centrally located. It's a shed which will be used for storage for the new owner or tenant. The design before you is a 3,000 square foot building with access located off the existing curb cut, which is at Post Office Road. I believe the original driveway is about 10 feet wide. We are widening that to accommodate for the commercial use there. I believe it's 24 feet wide at that point. Parking spaces were designed for this based on the business use, 250 square feet per one parking space per 250 square feet of the building, which equals 12 spaces, and we do have 12 spaces provided. Drainage calculations have been provided and initially approved through the wetlands process. I believe there is a memo from Town Engineer John Cobibo requesting some additional information. I had responded directly to him, trying to get him the information so we could have a response back. I have not received anything, and I don't think town staff has either at this point. What I do want to hand in is actually the document which I gave John Cobibo, which is an amendment number 2 for his questions that he had.
Just for clarification, this is amendment to the drainage calculations. So-
Correct. This is an amendment to the drainage calculations, which was submitted as part of this application. With the design, there's a detention basin provided in the front of the building, which is at the intersection of Post Road and Post Office Road. This was designed to accommodate the additional impervious areas, resulting in a net zero increase of runoff. Now, the project itself is fairly straightforward. There's really no surprises here. We did receive a staff report dated March 25th. I didn't get it until late on Monday, and unfortunately, I didn't have time to actually revise any plans and get it before town staff or this committee. But I would like to address those points verbally.
Well, sir, is it possible, because in that case, I don't know the rest, but I would like to have it continued because it's going to be pretty tough with that list and for a secretary when he has to sign it to check that all those things are added unless we have an updated list beforehand and we have all 10 of our commissioners take a look at it, even though it does go through staff. It's what we've done before, because I really don't consider it, myself and some of the other commissioners don't consider it, well, I don't feel it should have been here yet until those corrections that staff have recommended have been put on the plans. And then that we take a look at them, because it makes double work for us down through the line.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I think that any of the changes would be very minor and certainly could be
Well,
put
there's
into
quite a
the
list of
conditions
them.
of approval.
Well, I know, but that's
These
that's the
changes are
procedure
listed on the
we've done.
conditions of approval before you. So I just wanted to go over those issues that you have before
Well,
you.
that's up to the rest of the commission, but I like myself like to have complete maps, and then we don't have any problems. With 12 or 14 eyes taking a look at them, we don't have buildings that are built above what they were, and so forth.
I understand that, but if I could just go forward with my
And
presentation.
you just gave material in that we haven't seen, but go ahead. It's
Understand
up
that it
to
is a
the
public
others.
hearing, so I
Even
can
give
present that
the-
material.
Did he even give you the material yet?
It's for the
The
engineers.
material was just a slight modification of the drainage calculations to verify that there is zero net increase in the flow. So it's,
Well,
that's what we would tell
It'll
you.
be up to the others, that's
I'm
my.
okay going forward with it.
Well, that's okay.
At least
We'll
if,
Well,
if-
I'm not saying not go forward with
Yeah.
it, I just
no,
like
I
to
understand.
continue it, that's
If I
all.
may, I just want to go over the points. If
Right.
this
And then if
commission
there's-
go
feels
ahead.
free to
That's all
table,
right.
to continue
Right.
the public hearing, that's fine. At least I just want to get it out so you can understand where.
right,
Well,
that
you
way we're
still-
clear
you
as
still-
to what changes would need to be made.
You still have 4 votes here, I don't know how the rest of them are. I'm telling you ahead of time how it's been done before, and we've always had clean maps before, or clean drawings before we've voted. But
In
go
the
ahead.
interest in making things go faster, it's
Well, I
one
know,
way
but
to.
fast you make errors, and they've been made in the past.
Understood.
That's all right.
All right, so moving ahead, thank you. In the staff report dated March 25th, these items, which will be revised into the next plan set for the town staff to review once again. One was the rear yard setback. The dimension from the rear structure to the property was not shown. The rear yard is a 20-foot rear yard. The distance from that structure is 393 feet. So we didn't see it was relevant to actually put it, because you can see, obviously, it was fairly far away from that. So that was one item which will be added to the plan. The building height of 25 feet max, this will be added to the plan. This building that we're proposing will not exceed 25 feet. If that is the case, then the applicant would have to reapply. We understand that. Outside storage, that was an oversight on my part with the application. We are not proposing any outdoor storage, so that is going to be, that was just an error on my part with the application. Outdoor lighting, we didn't show any outdoor lighting. We weren't doing any lamp posts or anything like that. So all the lights are going to be off the building and designed and be in conformance with the town regulations with with the hoods, no light being shown off the property, standard practice with the regulations. Construction and commencement dates, none were provided, as this is just for marketability. There is no construction proposed at this time, so we really don't have those dates to provide for you. Anti-tracking pad, we do have a detail on the plan. However, we didn't show a location because the existing entrance is blacktop right now. So we were utilizing that as the anti-tracking pad. But if we did need one, then we had that detail to add one in there moving forward. But we can certainly add the location if town staff believes we need that there. The erosion and sediment narrative, there was a note on there that said wherever possible. The intent is, that's more of a generic notation. Sometimes you can't put the sediment measures in place due to phasing or utilities or some other type of work. But we certainly can remove that notation of wherever possible if town staff would like that. We didn't specify canopy trees. We weren't sure what kind of canopy trees we were going to do, but we do now. We are going to be using the sugar maples along the street line, and we're proposing a flowering dogwood in the landscape areas near the parking area or the interior of the site. The parking area near the building, there was a requirement, and I believe this was highlighted in red on the town memo, that we cannot be within 10 feet of the building. To clarify that, we simply are just going to remove that parking space and relocate it to the rear of the site, which is not going to increase or decrease any impervious. Actually, it'll probably decrease the impervious area, but that is very readily manageable and easy to make that correction. Landscaping calculations will be added to the plans. And engineering comments had a few comments, details of drainage, a question regarding the drainage, which we will be revising as well and adding to the plans. And the one item which is required is a sidewalk. And this was not originally put into the application because we really don't know how to proceed with that. Right now, Post Office Road, if you're familiar with it, has a sidewalk directly across the street running entirely down Post Office Road in the area. So adding a sidewalk to just a corner dead ending to nowhere really didn't make sense. So if it's possible, we would ask for a waiver of a sidewalk. If it's not, then we are at your mercy. Tell us where you want to put the sidewalk. It's from a common sense point, from an engineering point, it just doesn't make sense to put it there, but we are at your mercy for that, and any guidance would be greatly appreciated. And with that, I believe that sums up the revisions and the notations.
Questions from commissioners?
Because I guess, in terms of the sidewalk, what we're trying to do is make the area a little more user-friendly so that, as things get developed, more sidewalks will be added, and then all of a sudden, at least if we get a start somewhere, then there could be possibly some contiguous sidewalks. The only question I have is that right now you have a swale in the front of your building that you're using for drainage, across. I guess you're draining the entire, front area, and the rain leaders are all being sort of emptying into that swale. So, obviously, if we had a sidewalk, you'd have to move that swale or do something to that swale.
We actually wouldn't be moving the swale. What you're looking at is that swale diagrammatically shows a swale, but it's so gradual. It's really not a deep kind of gully or anything like that. It's more of a gradual swale. So we have plenty of room there in the street line on the property to actually put a sidewalk there. I don't see a problem. My point was that it just doesn't fit there. It's going to look odd. And I've seen it many places that it's just a dead-ended sidewalks, and it really is not appealing. But we're kind of discouraging it, but we'll do whatever this town wants. If that's what they want sidewalks, we'll put the sidewalks in. Not a problem.
Yeah, I think it's one of those new things that, if we never put them in, then we'll never have them. And, if at least if we start then it gives us the possibility of having a user-friendly area for, as things develop in terms of, you know, you have to imagine 50 years down the road, things are going to get more densely populated here.
No, we understand that.
And as they get more densely populated, then all of a sudden there are going to be a lot more walkers and joggers and everything else, so that we have to start somewhere, so.
Would it be-
This is the start.
Would it be possible to work with town staff to determine where a location would be? Because we're really, it's on a corner and it kind of doesn't fit anywhere, if you wanted the
They'd have to
entire
turn
street
it
or
into
just one
town
street.
engineering. They'd have to work with town engineering.
Just for clarification, there is no sidewalk on 119 Post Road to the north? Is that correct? The property to, just north of there?
Correct.
There's no sidewalk
There's no
along
sidewalk
there?
to the north or
Okay.
to the east along Post Office. Everything is directly across the street on Post Office, right on, along Spazzarini side.
Yeah.
My concern, I agree, Rich, on sidewalks all the time. But in this particular case, because it is a busier intersection, I think we're going to divert people to cross the street there and they go to nowhere. You can't even, the bridge right there under 91, once you go under the bridge, there's no sidewalks. And future development, I agree. Unfortunately, in this area, they're surrounded by wetlands all the way down that side of Post Office Road, all the way around the bend on Post Road. It's nothing but marshland over there. It's never going to be developed. And I just don't want to create something that may entice somebody to cross Post Office Road there, because then when they get to the end of the sidewalks, what are they doing? They're going in the road. Where if they stayed on Post Office up to Route 5, just on this one here, I think, you know, and I really think the town should create some sort of a fund
Fund, yeah,
that,
it's just,
you know, instead of putting the sidewalks in, they can waive them, paying a fee, and that fee is put towards
it's like we do with open
exactly what you're
space.
saying.
I would be for that in terms of if that, you know, again, you know, what we have to do is look towards the future, but everybody should be contributing towards the
I
future.
agree.
Rather than all of a sudden, you know, get it.
That's similar to
So-
what we do with
So
open
I
space.
would support that kind of, a, you know.
I mean, do we have
again-
the authority to?
So at this point, I do not believe you have a fee in lieu of sidewalks.
No, we don't.
We can establish it, but it would be after the fact in this case. But just another point to look at is the corner property point is about 4 feet from the right-of-way, from the pavement. So you wouldn't be able to put a sidewalk there at the actual corner of the site. So there's not enough room between the property corner and the pavement. So we'd have to modify the pavement to do that. But I tend
The
to
town
agree that
pavement?
I am also of the mind that you put the sidewalks in where you can and where they're gonna be feasible, even if they don't connect to
What's the width of the
anything. But if
road?
there's nothing else that's gonna be connected, and there are some sidewalks across the street, so then, you know. So in the future, what we could do is look at fee in lieu of, but it would not be
Doesn't help.
applicable to this application.
Well, in lieu of what the recent town manager, or the past town manager did with pulling them out, we're gonna hit this again. And it's excellent. It was something we should do, to put in the regulation, because,
Do we do that, Lori? We create that, a fee in lieu? Or,
I don't believe you have it now.
no,
No,
we
for open space you
created
do.
ourselves
do we,
without the
planning and
council.
zoning creates
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it's through planning and zoning regulations, yeah.
Because we're gonna
So we
hit
could
that
do that
again.
Well, we
modification.
need to, I agree with Rich, 100, but on this particular one here, I just don't see it.
Can't do it after the fact.
No.
I believe East Windsor has great language on that.
Yes, they do,
Are you
which is
done?
why I know you could do it.
Go ahead.
Another thing that I'm concerned about is due to the extremely high water level over there, the trees you mentioned planting, are they going to survive in that type of soil? I would think more of a weeping willow or something.
This is the species that was given to me by our landscape architect. I can look into it and, you know, bring that to his attention.
It's just, I know this
Dismiss it.
commission has requested certain trees on certain properties, and they just don't survive in those soils.
But are there any overhead wires on this side of the street? 'Cause you
That
have
I
to go
don't know,
look at
Chair.
it.
I don't
You
know.
have to look at power lines.
Overhead?
They're overhead on that same side, then,
Right
right?
now.
So he's got overhead wires there, he's not gonna be able to use certain trees.
Right.
Right, but I think that again, right now, the landscaping shows, I guess more shrubbery and, around the periphery of, the building itself and the parking area. And it really doesn't show where the site-specific trees need to be. I think there should be a minimum of 4.
Yeah, I believe there's 4 street trees required, and I believe there's 3 required within the interior due to the landscaping and the parking requirement there. So those definitely will be added to the
I
plan.
think Eversource has a list of type of trees that they suggest under wires or that type.
Yeah, and we're not going to put any trees under the wires. But we'll definitely be outside of that area.
Oh, well, they consider the branches and everything else, and if they're overhead on the street side or on your side, they'll be concerned, or they'll be out there cutting limbs.
Yep, we'll look into that, definitely.
That's all I have.
Charlie?
I'm just looking at this letter from Sparkle Services. Did you guys do anything with that?
So, staff discussed this
About
with the town
removing of the
engineer.
pipe that caused flooding in the property next to it?
So, staff did discuss this with the town engineer, and actually, the
Saw
site
his answer, it
plan,
didn't say much.
the site plan for
Where's that?
119 Post Road shows that the drainage from their pond actually goes to the east and not to the south. The other thing that we checked was whether or not there was actually a drainage easement from one property to the other, and there is not. So in reality, the 119 Post Road has no right to drain onto 33 Post Office Road. So we could go out and check what the drainage issue is, but it's not, I mean, they have no right to be draining onto this other property anyway. And their site plan shows that it should be draining to the east, not onto 33 Post Office Road.
What
So
was the pipe that was removed then?
I don't know what it was, but it's relatively very flat there, so I know that they graded it.
There was a piping in the center of the property, which is the crossing. I'll actually put it to it easier.
Can you just grab the microphone if you're going to talk? Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure how long.
Watch them, they're after you there, Lori.
Sure, knock me out.
That was replaced, but the drainage issues that we're talking about were all resolved through the wetlands meeting. The drainage calculations were presented there, so that's not any new news to this project.
Right.
So in other words, Sparkle is upset that they're losing their free drainage onto somebody
Well,
else's
they lost it
property.
years ago when they first,
No, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's not his responsibility to accept Sparkle's water, especially according to their site plan.
Yeah, I just,
Right, their site plan shows that being designed going towards the west, not towards our
I'm
site.
just asking because the question appeared.
No, I
Yeah,
know.
that's all
right.
I'm not
However, that area does
judging.
get wet,
Yeah.
for the record,
Oh,
it
yeah.
does get wet, and it's gonna be, piped, through the piping, which will discharge south to the existing, wetlands corridor or drainage swale that's there now. So any water will not be ponded or backed up in that area. And as part of the wetlands application, there is a shaded area on the plans. That area is going to be regraded. That was approved, just to make sure that the drainage does properly work in that area. And we don't want that area to be wet either. We're going to have a project in parking lots and buildings.
Could
so
you
definitely-
indicate on your plan the actual flow of the water that we're talking about in terms of, unfortunately, there's different grades depending on, which site plan we look at. Your site plan has a grade of like 125 in that area, and they show 95, so I'm just
Can you hear me?
wondering.
Okay. So this is the shaded area I'm talking about that's going to be regraded. The existing, it's really flat there, but in reality, the existing flow does go from the north to south direction. It goes this way. We're not impeding water. We're not draining water to the north. So This project will not influence the north property whatsoever.
That way.
I mean, if anything, we're collecting their water and treating it, which unfortunately it is the way it is, and what was done was done. So we're, working with what we have.
But normally, you know, if there's a natural topography that was established by Mother Nature, you know, you're not modifying the natural topography that was originally there.
Correct. We're still draining in the same direction from the north to south.
Right. Okay. So as long as you're not creating a dam, but you know you.
Oh, no,
by all means. Long as you're not modifying the natural topography, so that it again, if there's a natural flow of water that Mother Nature established 100 million years ago, then you have to maintain that flow of water. You just can't all of a sudden say, I'm going to create a dam at that point.
Correct. And
All
we're
right.
probably all familiar with that site, so we know that, this time of the year, right now, when the highest groundwater you have right now, it's usually wet.
Okay. As long as you're not impeding anything.
Well,
Not at all.
Okay.
I would normally agree, but the property that you're talking about next door should not be diverting their water across their property, and they are. And
No.
the site plan that was approved by the town shows their water going the opposite direction. So if they alter their site to take care of their own groundwater, and it creates what you're calling a dam for that property next door, well, that property next door should be draining the other way. So it doesn't fall back on them.
I agree, in terms of as long as, you know, their plot plan shows it draining in the opposite direction, correct.
Right.
Correct. And again, it's hard to tell looking at
I agree.
the information
Yep.
that we have, and I'm just ensuring that we're not creating an adverse effect, that you have to maintain a certain topography that exists.
Right, because I'm sure Sparkle's going to come in, and they're going to be upset when their water can't run across their property anymore, and that's when Lori's going to pull out their site plan and say, it never was supposed to.
Well, I discussed with the
The only thing that I'm looking at is that I'm looking at Sparkle's site plan, and they show an elevation of 95. It starts at 96, and there's a little swale that's created there. So that tells me that there's a swale that was originally there collecting some kind of water. There's not a significant change. It's not 10 feet of change in elevation, but it is at least a 1 foot change in elevation. And then there's parallel lines. So normally that indicates, again, a slight swale. So as you don't have to drain the other people's property. It's just that, again, if there's a certain natural tendency for water to be flowing originally towards a certain locale,
This is on the
it sort of has to be maintained or at least addressed.
I think that to make it very clear is that we are not impeding any of the water from
Yeah.
our neighbors.
Okay, fine.
I think that's probably the best way to
That's fine.
say it
All
for the
right.
record.
All right.
We're not preventing any damming or impeding his natural flow of water.
Okay.
His property is not graded to his site plan. We understand that, and then that, it is what it is. Being a surveyor, and you go out there, you survey, and you got what you got.
Right.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't do it right, then it's his fault. Correct, I agree with that.
in discussions with the neighboring property, or the owner of the neighboring property, he said that the way the drainage was installed was back when 91 was being built. It was a state or a federal installation, and I guess there was some sort of structure that was there, a wooden structure that I guess guided the water in a certain way away from 119 Post Road, and I guess that was removed. You guys would know a little
And
better
that's what
about
that shaded area is for. We are going to
So-
be correcting that with
Okay.
grading.
And that's really what he wanted to know. So I guess his concerns really would be addressed whenever that actually the work gets done out there.
Yep.
It's not Sterling Machine anymore.
You see this tiny, this line, and this is high?
Yeah.
It's a huge and everything, so everything's flowing. I don't know if it's flowing that way.
Is the old
Because of
cemetery
causeway.
on this property?
Cause of 91?
Oh, I don't know about that.
I'm sorry.
It was a historic bait shop. I don't know
The
about a
old cemetery?
That might be east,
Okay, because there's an old cemetery in that area over there.
where the coffins would pop out.
Well, I don't want
Yeah,
to
a
get too
little too wet for
detailed,
that. You
but-
don't want to see that happen.
Well, that's why,
I don't remember that, but
No, there was in the front, or right along Post Office Road was the old house. I believe it was a two-story house. There was an associated septic tank with it. All that has been removed from the site. And I think that was there years and years, so I don't believe there'd be any room for a cemetery up there.
I think he's right, it might be farther back.
So that's the old Sterling machine, yeah. I don't think they're out of there. I think.
So I think that you addressed all of the concerns that staff had in the report. I think the only question that we had was whether the loading area, or the area shown on the plans that's sort of paved right up next to the building, is that a loading area? That was the only other question I can see that we still had.
To be honest with you, that area are garage doors, so I mean, would it be a loading area? I would assume it would, I guess, be a loading area, but it's just garage doors for access into the building.
Okay.
Because we can't have outside, we're not proposing outside storage, we're utilizing the garage areas for outside storage, for inside storage. We can call it loading area. I do believe we conform to the regulations for a loading area, so if, that's easily add that note as well.
Okay. Was there an ART held on this?
Nope, there was no ART held on this. But we did distribute the application electronically and got the comments back that were part of this staff report. The only people we heard.
That's also something that on these, they had time to iron things out there, and the maps could be corrected by the time they're here. We're eliminating too many steps. I mean, granted, I know, but it's fast sometimes isn't the best way to go. But because if you had an IRT, you would have had all this out, and they would have had plenty of time to have the completed maps before us. Tonight, we just got this on Sterling machine, and those maps and those notes too, along with that. They were on our desk.
Right, those were materials that,
And we've asked not to have material on our desk for meetings, but
those were in response to Mr. Tingley, the neighboring property owner, his comments. We brought it to John Cabivo's attention, and he pulled out those maps and sent it over to us with his,
I'm thankful
in an
that he
email.
did, but again, we hadn't seen them up until now.
Well, it's more or less somebody coming up to talk to us at the public hearing.
Yeah, it is.
Instead, he just sent a letter.
But if
instead
it
of-
was material and dropped off, we'd still wait till the next meeting to look at, to consider it.
I don't believe
mean-
that this really warranted, we felt that this was a pretty basic design and site plan, so I think that's why we
I know,
didn't
but
do a
there's-
full ART, but everybody was advised of it.
Advised of what?
They were given the opportunity to comment, and the comments are in the memo
I
from
know,
staff.
I know, yep, all right.
The only
Then
thing
you're
that I
just
see that is,
bypassing the 10 people on the commission. You don't need a commission anymore.
the only thing that I would see that would be changing on the plan would be the relocation of the parking space. Everything else is just a couple notes. These are minor modifications.
I know you've been in town before, but I don't know if you remember all the things that went on, but that's all right.
Well, luckily I wasn't here to see all the things that went
don't
on.
know. It's-
I just want to try to move things forward and
I know
in a
you
positive
can, I know,
fashion,
but
and-
sometimes
Yeah.
going fast is not the proper way to go. If you have all these things that were set in place because we were having problems, they have plenty of time to do their work, and the 10 members of the commission have time to do their work. And the secretary doesn't end up in court making, or having problems.
Yeah, the only thing I might add is Charlie, is that, these are tentative plans, and in reality, they might even change at a later date.
Yeah, they do.
So,
and that's
so
why they've
if they
been
change
brought
at a
to
later
us.
date, they will have to come before us, so
That's
that,
right.
you know, so as long as, you know, and again, I don't see significant modifications, but, you know, they're notes, but, you know, the building isn't going to fall down, or it's not going to be totally, you know, unacceptable with the notes that we have to put in, and I probably would have to agree that, you know, we should sort of have them modify the drawings, and I will take a look at it, you know, when
if you-
they resubmit it.
If you had the ART and everything that we have had before, and don't try to circumvent them, you wouldn't have this problem at this time. They would be what they should be.
Well, that,
But that's.
I don't,
I'm
I
just
don't
saying.
necessarily, I agree in the ART 100%, but in this particular case, I think the biggest question is with the property neighbor, who at the last minute addressed with a letter to us.
Well, that's right.
And
It'd
I
be the
think
same.
our staff went above and beyond getting John Cabibbo to answer the neighbor's complaint, and
Well,
come to
yeah,
find
but-
out, it's not, the neighbor's wrong. And, you know, you can't hold these gentlemen accountable. Now, if we didn't have John Cabibbo's letter, then I would say, but I think our staff did a good job getting us a rebuttal for that.
Yeah. and
Other than that, I don't see anything here that is even remotely, you know, trying to be slid under the radar or pushed through.
We're just eliminating steps that should be there. That's all. You can vote any way you want to vote. That's my opinion. If that's your presentation and the staff? Anything? Okay.
Yeah, no,
Any-
it's.
We have no further comments at this time.
Yeah,
this
that's,
public hearing.
but I wanted you first, then I'll get the public, but they've got to get out of the way. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Close, it's up to you. Do you close the hearing or continue? Somebody's got to make a
I make a
motion.
motion that we close the public hearing, PH number 2938.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? 4, okay. 1 against. I'll close the public hearing. PH 2938. No, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the draft resolution for public hearing 2938 in accordance with the prepared Planning Department resolution with, and I guess the only thing that we're going to, the date is the March 28th, but there's a total of 38 items, conditions, but we're going to eliminate number 17, which is the sidewalk, in terms of, you know, because of the fact that we don't believe it's going to be utilized or useful at this location, and we don't have anything in place to allow us to do anything else. We are just going to eliminate that one condition.
And how about the trees that they were going to
we
check
wanted
into?
4 trees.
Right, and well, the trees are indicated here, and you will work with staff in
with the
terms of,
species.
for species of the trees,
Well, check with the electric company too.
right?
Yeah, I'll be
want 'em
checking
too
with the
high.
electric company in town. and
You don't want too
verify
high.
everything.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? 4, 1 opposed.
Reasons?
Beg your pardon?
Do you have any reasons for or against, just for the record?
Reasons for opposing or for approving?
Yeah, reason both.
Okay,
Okay.
I guess the reason for approving is I think they meet, you know, all of our regulations, and, you know, with the site-specific conditions that we have, although there's 13 with subcategories below those 13s, there's a significant amount of modifications that were listed as site-specific. You know, I guess we don't believe that they're, you know, significant enough to prevent us from going forward.
and I voted to approve. It's a grandfathered lot, and we sit here and tell people they're grandfathered in. They can do things forever as long as it changes. This is a particular situation where it's a very, very difficult lot, and they do need the grandfather clause to get this building in, which they did. And I agree with Rich about the sidewalks, and it's against everything I stand for, but this particular lot, I think it's going to be more of a safety hazard than help if we were to add sidewalks there. So I agree, and that's why I voted to approve. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you, thank you. Enjoy your spring. Coming quick.
Site plan review 1771. 56 Enfield Street.
They come.
Oh, okay.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, if you will, gentlemen, introduce yourselves and make your presentation to the commission.
Good evening. I'm Larry Webster. I represent Alfred Banish and Company, and in that capacity, we're representing our client, GPM Investments, who are running the gas station at 56 Enfield Street. At this point in time, they need to replace their underground tanks. Per Connecticut DEEP statutes, they have reached their end of life and have to be replaced. So this is a relatively straightforward, take the old tanks out and put new ones in and upgrade the entire fueling system to current standards, replacing, we'll be replacing the pipe and installing a significant amount of upgrades to the system to protect, basically to protect the environment.
Okay, yes.
You might have addressed this, but the application states that they will be replaced with new units, but the narrative and the site plan states that they will be stored during the tank replacement work and reused.
That is correct. The application, my error, I put the wrong information on the application. The notes are correct, the plans are correct.
So you're putting new tanks in the
We are
ground.
putting new tanks, but the old dispensers are going to be removed from the islands in order to allow us to put containment sumps underneath them and then reinstalled after the fact.
Okay,
So there'll be no actual change in equipment at that point.
okay. And I guess this would be to the staff. Are we putting the cart before the horse here without going through the aquifer protection first?
The aquifer protection is really just a registration for for the use that's already going on there. So, this is a sort of a DEP, like mandated project that they're doing, and the equipment that they're putting in there has the double-walled tanks and things like that, the type of things that should be installed in a gas station, but also over an aquifer.
Were they previously registered?
Well, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
No, this site has never been registered.
Yeah,
There
we're
are.
working on
There was a
getting,
law about they had to register within a certain amount of time once we were,
right, and now we're working with DEP because most properties in town over the aquifer were never registered, so they're allowing us to start fresh. So we're getting the regulations sort of ready for you guys to review. It has to go through town attorney first. We have to get a list of properties over the
supposedly
aquifer.
the staff, or we were told that everybody had been sent letters at that time, that's what the commission was told.
Right. I'm sure letters did go out. I wasn't here back then, but DEP is letting us start from the beginning, which is very nice of them. So we're working on getting that program up and running. In the meantime, we're allowing people to register as they come in and their uses come to our
Well,
attention.
What have we done to notify, I mean, almost with the number of gas stations that we have and other people on top of the aquifer, what are we doing to let the people know that they have to come in?
Well, so there's a timeline that we have to meet the requirements for. So really the
Well, we
timeline.
had a timeline before, and apparently it didn't happen.
Right. So the regulations right now that we have are outdated. So what we needed to do is update the regulations first. Once you guys adopt the updated regulations, that's sort of when the timeline starts. The letters have to go out. People have to register in so many, they have so many weeks to register or file their registration, and they have to come before you to register. And then after that deadline is anyone who hasn't registered, they don't have the right to operate there.
It's
Is there any-
deja vu. It's the same thing we did years ago.
I know, here we go again. This is why I say,
how long have you
sometimes you
owned?
skip things and,
We've been operating,
How long has he owned the property?
this is Ed Garenbone. He is from GPM Investments.
Yeah.
So I would-
I'm project manager. We took over this property. Do you have the date that we took it
I
over?
don't.
A ballpark.
It's about 2006.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah,
he could have taken possession after that happened.
I'm sure he probably did. I
know.
don't know how long we've been supposedly
Right.
doing
I
it.
agree with you on this, Charlie. It's deja vu all over again,
Yeah.
but I don't want to hold him
No,
hostage because
I
he
know,
may have gone.
you can't. But there's other people out there. The only ones I remember was Agway up on North Street, and there was one or two down in the Hollow, and that was it. And we kept after people to what was going on, and we were told they were moving along. Can we do a press release or something that it's coming up, and they should?
Yep.
I mean,
That is part of the
maybe they don't know if they're on an
requirements.
aquifer. Or
It's
get
part of the
paper to
requirements.
put out a map of where the aquifers are.
That's also
Yeah.
part of the
Because our
Also
staff,
part of the requirements.
because our staff
don't
has
know.
so much free time, they could go through the aquifer and send everybody a letter who lives over it. I mean, they
Oh,
got
yeah,
nothing
That
else
is
to
also,
do.
all of that is
All
part of the requirements.
Right, all of this is part of the requirements. I think what happened was
You
that.
guys have to do that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
So
well-
what happened was you did adopt it, and
Kidding.
the letters were sent out, and one reason or another, it sort of dropped.
Yeah, sure did.
So we spoke with Deep. The assistant town planners worked out a plan with them to reinstitute this, and we're starting from scratch, sort of scratch. So now we're trying to implement it. So
Two employees about, 2 years ago maybe, had a meeting with Deep when we didn't know about it, and they were told then that they had a date, and then, but goes even further back than that.
So back to the question.
So
this
aside
is
from
why.
what happened in the past, we're
I
moving
know,
forward,
we've
and we're going to
gotta
get
do
this
it,
correct
right.
this time.
And that's
And
why we're
meanwhile,
not
they could
why we're not
Have you
register
talked
later.
to
right now.
the council or anybody, I mean, maybe, I don't know, to get money to have somebody that can concentrate on doing this? I mean, just one individual,
This is a state mandate. It's
I know
one
it
of those
is.
unfunded mandates, but it's not terribly hard. Once everybody's registered, it pretty much just,
right,
you know.
right.
just-
The problem was getting them registered or having people know it.
Right, and that's where we're starting. So we've got to get the, as,
I'm saying to some way, like having the papers or somebody putting out, or maybe on the internet, putting out where the aquifer is.
right,
so that they
that's
could-
required. All of these things that you're suggesting is required through the DEP.
But
We
could
will
we
be
do
doing
that
that.
beforehand and say we're
Yes.
working on this and be
Yes.
prepared or something?
It sounds like they got it down what,
All right,
because it should have been done years ago,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
it was or wasn't.
Well,
They're going to start from zero.
Hey,
and-
I'm
They'd
just
rather
saying,
see it get done and done properly
I don't
than
think
have
the
it
council
piecemealed.
realizes the work that those people have upstairs or what we
Well,
do.
that was my joke about they have nothing else to do.
Yeah, I
so,
know.
yeah.
Well,
I
I just have one question, Laurie. Is there any reason why these gentlemen here are already aware that they're going to have to do it, that they couldn't do it under the old system and be registered already?
I believe that they have been informed that they need to register at this time.
We have filed a complete application. We've conformed with all of the requirements for registration on the aquifer. Programs are in place
Okay,
that we're required to have at the site. So we're actually a little bit ahead of the process here in the town.
Right.
My point was, you're already involved in it, it's a good time to do it.
It's,
oh, yeah.
from our
I-
point of
Underway.
view, we're done.
What we're
waiting for them
talking
to
about really
Yeah.
has nothing to
Okay.
do with you. You're caught up in
All right,
it.
that's-
Yes.
They
End-
gave us
end
the
of question.
requirements, we just have to inspect.
Yes.
So we're going to set up an inspection. We're also talking to DEP about particularly gas stations over the aquifer, if there's anything special that they tend to look for. They're sort of training us on what to look for when we go on these inspections, because we've never really,
In this site, it kind of doesn't make any sense to inspect what's there right now because they're digging it up.
I know.
Well,
It's going to be all brand new in
But they
6
also
months.
have to be inspecting with the dig, in case there's leaks here already.
Yeah,
have
they
to
gotta check
come
the
and
soil.
Look at that.
uh,
But they already know about that part.
The aquifer registration process is more about ongoing processes
Right.
that are in place to deal with whatever happens at the site
Yeah,
to
that they're
protect the
there.
aquifer,
right.
and less to do with the actual equipment that's installed.
But the problem also is, I know the state, and I have a copy, but I don't know what year it is, of all the problems that are in town that on leakage in soils and so forth. Mary brings hers
has
with her,
hers,
yeah.
yeah.
She has a copy, and I had a copy, but I don't know what year that is. And it's all reported leaks and so forth, but we never got copies until I found out years ago that there is such a thing, and Mary has one too.
We actually, that's actually in your packet this week. So the list of potentially contaminated sites.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing in Enfield.
it's,
Recall it
I
either.
guess it's partial, it's part of the list that shows that this subject property was on that list.
Right, that's, we have the whole thing just for Enfield. They publish it for the whole state, but you can get just the Enfield ones.
Yeah, and we can certainly put that in the next packets if you're looking for an updated version. I know we normally do update it. I don't know if we've done it this year.
See it?
I don't see it.
No, I didn't
But
see it.
anyway, these applicants have done their due diligence and are,
Well, that was my question.
they're already
They've
ahead of the
done it,
game.
so
I know, it's,
End of
okay.
story.
There's some, I have no,
Because I do have a question in terms of, I was looking at your removals for the concrete slab where the pumping takes place, and that you're doing a significant amount of removals, but you have a little patchwork that sort of goes around. And my question is that the normal practice in today's world is that you create a collection impression into the concrete slab, some kind of a grid system. Grooves, so that if there is a spill,
It doesn't run off.
right, all the gasoline that does spill gets collected into those grooves. And that, seeing that you are over an aquifer, and I didn't go out there to specifically look at, whether you had those grooves on your pumping areas. But, I guess one of the things I would suggest is that, depending on, if you don't have them, then you should have them everywhere where you're going to be doing pumping, especially the fact that you're going to be over an aquifer. So, in that vein, that, I probably would recommend that you remove, if not the entire slab, the areas that are being significantly modified, and be replaced with that kind of a slab system rather than a patchwork system.
Okay, well, I can address that to some extent. It is not a requirement of any statute, except in the state of Massachusetts, which has a requirement for fire suppression systems at self-service gas stations. They're very common there.
I'm not saying that it's a requirement. I'm saying that, that's good practice is what I'm saying, in terms of,
Working up to that. So it's not a requirement, and typically in a retrofit application, if they're not there, we wouldn't install them. If they are there, we would continue them or replace them wherever they were disturbed, typically. If the council feels that it would be beneficial here, and it certainly wouldn't hurt, it is possible to retrofit, cut grooves back, essentially it's just a channel in the concrete.
Right.
They could be sawed in place and actually put in to the existing concrete, and they would be tooled in to the replacement concrete where it's just the perimeter of the drive mat at the islands. So that would be possible to do. If the commission feels that that's important, then that could be done.
I think that it would be a step in the right direction, especially if we have that opportunity to do it now, that we should, take every effort that we possibly can and, try to, create an environment that is more user-friendly and more environmentally friendly.
I think that's a good idea if they're willing to do that.
So I would suggest that we would not be averse to you applying a condition to that effect.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, someone, staff, anything?
The only comment that we received from town staff was from the water pollution control facility. They just wanted you to show the sanitary sewer connections on the final plans. So that was the only site-specific condition that we included in the resolution.
The reason it's not on the plan currently is because water pollution doesn't know where it is, and we didn't have any way to locate it, short of actually either digging it up or running a camera through it, so it wasn't part of our survey process. In the course of construction, I assume, Ed, that we would not have a problem getting somebody to camera that and locate it.
Do you have old maps, though, of the station? Because did I read in here that the tanks were changed a few years back or some years back? This is the second change?
1988.
Beg your pardon?
30 years ago, 1988.
Oh, 30? God. What?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It seemed like that.
Yeah, you probably don't.
Yeah, I don't know. We can check the engineering department. They have maps
I
of it.
asked Paul, and he didn't have anything on it.
Oh, they didn't have it? Okay, well, that was just a suggestion. You might,
Yeah. So we will be able to do that. It's not a problem.
it's really, I didn't think
We'll
that
do whatever
station
we
was that
can. If we
old.
can find something for them, we will.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a
Oh,
mo-
let me close. Let me close 1771.
Oh.
I closed it just now, 1771.
Close the hearing. It doesn't have to be a public hearing to close it.
But well, I know, all right.
End of discussion.
It doesn't matter.
That's,
It's good.
it's closed anyway.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve site plan review 1771 in accordance with the memo dated March 28th, 2019, with it has 22 conditions, and I think that we're going to add an additional condition that we're going to, create embossments and grooves in the concrete for the collection of any potential spills that occur at that particular site. So with that, it would have 23 conditions.
What about the monitoring of that pipe?
I think, well, they have, is that site number 7?
Site-specific condition number 7 was about the sanitary sewer connections to the building must be shown on the final plans. You might want to just modify that one so that they don't get hung up on that, because it sounds like you're not going to be able to
They're gonna do it.
find
They
it
can't
until
do
after the final plans are submitted. So,
All right.
Yeah, that's true. We wouldn't be locating, that would be on our as-built drawings at the end of the project.
okay, so,
It's a final plan.
all right,
as-built.
let's say as-built, yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
All right.
I wonder if the sewer would have one. 30 years, somebody should have.
Should have and do have is two different, it's probably up in the swamp upstairs.
Well, they cleaned that out, though. Remember the
Second.
trash? Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Or 500. They keep saying unanimous, but we don't have. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much, and good luck.
Animus with us five.
And we'll see you under the aquifer.
as soon as we can get a permit, basically. We're operating on an extension with DEEP right now because the tanks are due. So as soon as we can get it done, they'll be a lot happier.
What do we have to now?
Thank you.
Okay. There are two of you in the audience.
We're on the agenda tonight.
I'm sorry?
We are on the agenda tonight.
Are you?
Yes, sir.
For, yeah.
SPR 1773, item 13B.
Okay. Well, you want to take them out of order? Let's get them out of order then. Somebody make a
Mis-
motion for me.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we modify the agenda to go directly to Section 13B, Public Site Plan Review 1773.
Second.
Okay, oh boy, this is you want to come, well, is this, go ahead. I'm sorry, are you presenting or they're here?
Yeah, this was an administrative approval. Basically, they want to put a restaurant, an Italian-American restaurant, into the mall. So we were going to ask for administrative approval. I guess they're here if you have any questions for them.
Well, I could ask you, what location are they going at?
It's,
I mean, let me ask you, is it a restaurant location already?
Yes, sir.
The
Yes, sir.
Pizza Pie Restaurant.
Pizza 314 on the corner, across from Panera.
Come on up. Why don't you come
Come
on
on
up so
up.
you're on
Yeah.
the microphone?
I apologize.
No
That's
problem.
all right.
Thank you for seeing us out of order.
Okay, no, it's fine. We just see you sitting here and, you know.
That's okay,
there
we've
was
never
no
been to
more-
a meeting before. It
no
was
more
interesting.
hearings.
It was
Excuse
interesting.
me? Could you
Yes,
just
yes, ma'am.
press the red button on there?
oh,
I'm
I
sorry.
think it is
Thank you.
down.
Is
Okay,
it down or not?
I think so. Oh, now it's up.
There.
Okay.
If you want to give yourself a plug as to what you're doing and where you're doing it, now would be the time.
yeah, now that because you're going all over town, you might as well, here's your chance.
Sure. Okay, my name is Kate Boulay. This is my husband, Bob, and we have another partner who was unable to attend tonight. But we are trying a new endeavor, and we're going to be opening up a restaurant in the old Pizza Pie location in Enfield Square Mall. And we'll be serving pizzas, Italian food, and some American food, some ethnic food, some Polish dishes, some American dishes, some French dishes. So that's kind of where we are.
What was the name of the restaurant again?
It's called our other partner. His last name is Romano, and since there's already a pizza oven there, and it was an Italian-themed restaurant, we're using his last name.
So Romano's.
Romano's Italian-American restaurant, but everyone's probably just going to call it Romano's.
Is this an outside location? Because I'm not, or was this?
I think so.
This was an
No,
inside?
it's completely inside.
Is this opposite the cinemas?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes. It's kind of on the little corner where the security office is, Panera, and there's like a watch repair store that's like right, the real small place.
So you're farther down by the jewelry store? right?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, if you walked out of the movie theaters, it would be straight ahead.
okay.
Oh, good, all right. So you have the people, the patrons of the movie theater.
Yes, we're
especially.
hoping to get some of those.
Get a whole pizza, bring it in.
Yeah, there you go.
So you had said Polish food, so you have galunkis and
I
pierogies?
make a mean galumki, I tell you what.
Don't we normally make them bring in samples? When they're building a building, they have to.
Definitely. I agree with that.
Well, I will tell you, when once we get up and running, council members, come on in, we'll give you some free donuts. We're making donuts fresh. We'll have some breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So yeah, council members get 5% off anytime.
Oh, brother. That
And
was
staff.
bad. You started something.
Jen gets 10% off.
Okay,
You know that's illegal.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we allow for administrative review for site plan review 1773 90 Elm Street.
Second.
motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Well, it's
Sounds good
nice,
to me.
nice to see a location there, and I hope you do very well. All in favor? Good. Good luck.
You're all set.
All set.
Lori
Thank you very
will
much.
take
Have a
care
nice
of it.
evening.
Thank you. Okay, let's revert back to discussion, a future East Windsor, I'm sorry.
Yeah, other business.
Oh, the business, that's where it goes, the East Windsor Casino. Just, we've been working on, and keep in mind several items. They're coming in, and we had started discussion before on the effect that the casino might have on housing in that end of town. There was an article, I believe, I forget where I read it, that, and when Roger was here, we were talking that they usually triple up depending on the number of hours that the casino is in operation. And whether that's the type of housing you want, or what type of housing there, or you want to allow that. I think there's a section in our regulations that allow only certain number of unrelated people living in a house already, but I don't know if we want to revisit that, or if you don't want to do anything. I don't know.
Sounds like you're talking about rooming houses.
Well, that's what we're talking, yeah. Lori's probably up more on it because she was in on the beginnings of all this, but you're going to have some kind of effect. I think you'll have an effect with possibly restaurants and other activities at our end, because actually where this casino is going to be, where the Indians, if it goes through, is going to be right on the edge of our border, and they probably more come this way.
That is certainly a likelihood and possibility. What you're talking about is, they call it kind of like hot racking. So basically what would happen is a number of workers will buy a house, and they'll each share the bedroom based on their shift. So basically when one gets up, the other one uses the bed. That's why it's called hot. It's a submarine term, actually, submariner term, but so it's just that, one person will get up, go to their shift, and then the next person will come in and go and sleep in the same bedroom, and they'll just do that for all the shifts. There's not much we could do about it. This is something that I did investigate at great length, and talking with planners out in the location of the other casinos in Connecticut. And that was the one thing that they brought up, that they really didn't have a really good way of dealing with it, other than just, keeping an eye on things. I mean, you will probably get more Airbnbs, things like that. So we certainly can look at these things, what's in our regulations and what we can modify to perhaps, we might look at the definition of family. The other thing that might occur, well, it's not a zoning issue, so I'm not even going to bring that up. So we can certainly look at that. But it's something I think we should have a discussion on, because, I don't know, sounds like it's pretty close. I don't know what they're going to do. But it's closer than it was when I'd asked before that we get ready for it. There's one minor hurdle at this point, and I think that will, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but.
Construction? One minor hurdle for the construction? Well, I thought they cleared all the way.
No, I think the governor is trying to work out things with Springfield. I think there's still some problems in that area.
I think we first started to look at the implications for Enfield when there was talk of developing a casino complex in Springfield as well.
Yeah, we did. It's another one of those things that there's not enough staff and not enough people working on these things. And I'd rather plan than react, but we always end up reacting to something rather than planning for, or in case of.
Hopefully, we'll be able to update our zoning regulations en masse. In other words, rewrite the entire book in the next year or so, and we could kind of put stuff like this in there.
Yeah, but I think we got to. We got a year already. I mean, have we got time to?
from time of construction, they're talking about 18 to 20 months is what their goal
You
is.
think we have enough time to plan
Time
what
of
we're going to do?
construction, I'd say they're at least a year away from putting a shovel in the ground.
Well, they'd already demolished, I understand. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's just the base of the Showcase Cinemas that is left and the staircases around it, because actually the
The other
topography
one
goes
to
up there.
think about, because it also seems like it's going to be closer, is marijuana stores, and you read the paper of border towns in Mass and the gangs that they've had coming in from other states and other towns. I don't know if there's a store in Springfield or not. I don't realize.
Northampton, I think, is the closest.
Yeah, Northampton is. And if there's ever one in Enfield, basically is where do you want it? And I think that's something we've got to be prepared for too, because again,
Actually, I don't remember which one, but I saw a convenience store in town that had a sign that those pills were there.
pills.
Or CBD or.
Yeah, CBD pills, hemp pills.
Yeah, that's different than marijuana.
I know,
It
but
actually
it's
doesn't
still-
have any THC in that.
You know,
Well,
but
but,
we already got selling that in town,
The
so.
staff has been working on it, but the one that has really been
Totally.
working on it
Can't
is
remember which store,
Outhill.
though.
So
Rick is out.
Well, we gotta get him fixed first.
I actually am going to the national conference, and I've signed up for a workshop, but unfortunately I'm on the waiting list. But it's actually visiting the grow houses and stores and stuff, and they'll talk about the different regulations that they have and
Free
stuff like that.
samples, Lori?
No, thank you.
Well, I mean, if
But no, seriously, I mean, it is a very big thing, and so a lot of planners are looking to find good regulations.
yeah,
So
if we
I'll be
were, I
looking
mean, if it
to
was,
do
we
those
were ever
workshops.
chosen to have a store, and we're so close to Springfield, and if you get the two casinos, I don't know, you better think of someplace you want them that they can handle.
Well,
Okay.
have you discussed what a medical marijuana pharmacy would be? Would you just consider that a pharmacy? I'm talking strictly medical marijuana. Would you consider that a pharmacy, or would you want some special regulation for that? Because the state actually regulates the medical marijuana pharmacy type stores. Like they have a lot of restrictions already.
do,
But I don't know whether you've even discussed it, or
No, we
I'm assuming
haven't.
you probably have.
No,
So, can a regular pharmacy sell that, or does it have to be a separate
No,
location?
it has to be a separate location, but it is medical marijuana, so it is essentially
so we'd have to
medicinal.
consider
Right.
both then, huh?
Because normally what I've encountered is that there are certain locations where they're allowed to cultivate marijuana. And
Correct.
normally those locations also have dispensaries associated with them so that they have someplace that they can peddle their wares. So, I think that, this random, I guess locations and pharmacies probably isn't going to spring up until it gets legalized, where it's not that, it'll still be regulated, and they still will have only a certain number of pharmacies that they'll allow, but it won't be a wholesale area where.
no.
Right, you're not going to have
So-
one after the other
Correct,
after the
correct,
other.
correct. So they will be limited. So it's one of those kind of things where right now the pharmacies are located in
Right.
direct proximity to where the cultivation
Well,
actually
is there
turns.
not six or eight pharmacies in the state now that sell that?
Yeah, I believe so. It's
Without the
very
farm
highly
there.
regulated, and the licensing is very restricted for the medical marijuana. Now, that might change drastically with the new administration in
Yeah,
the
it
state.
is, I know.
So, the thing
With
is if,
cultivation, you don't know what's coming in, but
Oh,
Almost
what
like
sort
the
of
vineyard, huh?
regulations might we want to look at?
The wines.
well, I think we
For
should,
separating distances or something like that.
the
you
whole
know.
thing, well, they're separated anyhow, so you have to, I think.
probably don't want them next door to schools, but
Well, but that's the type of thing we'd have to put into
Liquor
play.
stores, they have regulations, and
Yeah.
I would just be concerned that if you were to go into the pharmacy, medical marijuana right now, suppose somebody comes to Enfield tomorrow and wants to open a medical marijuana facility. It's allowed. we can't stop it.
Right.
Because we don't have a regulation.
No.
All those medical marijuana facilities are gonna roll over to regular marijuana facilities when it becomes legal.
They may not. No, they keep them separate, I believe.
They're separate in mass.
Because the medicinal ones, I mean, it's like a prescription. So
Right,
where
but you don't need a
the,
prescription anymore, is what I'm saying. If it's legal.
right, but I think
anybody
that,
can walk in.
well, that's true, but I think that it might be a different production.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm
they-
not,
they
I'm-
measure
that-
the
that's why I'm
amount,
trying to go to this
whatever.
workshop, so I can have a better understanding of it.
In the leaf, I guess. They know how strong it is, I think, is strength.
There was
Well, it's
a-
something that you've got to be prepared, I would rather have us prepared for
The
it.
dispensaries.
Because we went through this with the store that's up near McDonald's. And then they were gonna have another one downtown, which didn't, well, we worked on that. But anyhow, we took care of those things. But we weren't prepared for it. And so they ended up where they ended up because, like you said, we had no way to say no. All right.
If you get accepted.
No, it's just that there's a specific workshop where you're actually going to go on tour of these places, and I'm on a waiting list to
That
actually
would be
take
good
it.
if you get,
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be
I'm
good.
hoping that there'll be some other seminars on the topic, but I'd like to go to the establishments and get a feel for it.
yeah, good, okay,
So-
so then we would be sort of prepared for, that'll be great.
There was an article in the paper a few weeks ago about local farmers wanting to grow hemp, and it was going to make it legal. Have we had anything about that in Enfield yet, or I don't know? But they mentioned that Enfield
I think-
farmers were involved,
I
so.
believe hemp is legal. It's not, it's
But they wanna
different
start-
than marijuana,
Right.
yeah. So, I mean, you can buy hemp bags and things like that. Yeah, clothes.
Yeah, well, there's all different uses for it, but
The one thing I do know is that the medical marijuana grow houses are very, very high security.
Yeah.
They're all indoor.
Controlled.
It's hydroponic. It's not out in the field. It's so they have security around the building. They have,
securities,
Didn't they
it's-
have to have double security, I think?
It's not necessarily a farm use.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, no.
okay.
Well, they're two different subjects to hemp and that anyways. They're different.
Any correspondence from anybody or anything? Hearing none, okay, commissioners' correspondence? You got anything?
All right. Yeah, we're waiting for Rick to get back to finish up, but he started doing something on those trucks parked on George Washington Road and South George Washington Road and Hazard Avenue. In that little triangle,
Your middle road?
middle road, and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there was an article.
he told me he started working on something. Next thing you know, he's in the hospital. So.
No, there was, he had it was in the last package, he had a report on it.
Yeah, and we actually received correspondence from the guy who owns that property actually today, saying that he sold those vehicles.
Well, they're still there so far, but
Yeah, that's what Raquel and I were discussing, that we'd actually have to go out there and see, but we received that today, so I don't know if we'll get to it tomorrow, but we certainly will go out there and take a
How fast he's
look.
going to deliver them. First, you got to dig them out of the trees. But-
Lori, I had a call from an individual on the former nursing home on Maple Road, I think. It's a yellow and brown house. I don't know if he called you. I guess he claimed, I don't know, I guess he talked to Rick, and Rick has been out there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, and Rick is out on medical leave for probably another
Oh,
month.
okay.
But what road was that on?
North Maple Street. It's near you.
That the one that was going to be the church or something?
No, it was gonna, I don't know.
Was there a concern or a question, or, I mean, what was the call regarding?
Yeah, Rick has been working on it. and,
Okay, we'll look,
he
we'll
had
look
a
and see
question, I
his
guess.
files. We'll check his files.
It's a former nursing home. I had friends that lived there a long time ago, near there. So, and it was an upper story. It's a yellow house, I understand, or brown and yellow house. But they were concerned about it. I asked them suggested he call you because I knew nothing about it.
Is it vacant?
Yeah, he's complaining about upkeep, I guess. That's why Rick is on it on zoning,
Light.
or blight, I guess.
We do have one on North Maple in the top 10, so it might be that one. I'm just not
Probably is.
recalling
It's
the
Blight,
address
yeah.
right now.
I don't know. I just told
We'll
him
look
to
into
talk
it.
with you because I didn't know a thing about what he was talking about.
Perfect, yeah. Always have them call staff. It's the best thing.
Are there any developments on that house that burned in December 2013 on Church Street? I think it's 3739, where we, I think the town was going to sell it.
So at this point, the town has gone out to bid for an environmental expert to go out to check on the asbestos aspects of the site.
Oh, geez.
Once they do that and we figure out what we need to do then, we've also got a bid out to have all of the buildings taken down on that site, actually demolished. So,
The other two houses as well?
yes. So Nelson Tereso, our new deputy director of development, of community development, is working on that.
Oh, good. You got help. All right.
So
Good.
the town still owns it then?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
We're working on it.
All right.
Where have I heard that one?
Okay, Director of Planning, it's up to you. Let's do the TNT fireworks, I guess.
So basically, this comes in every year as a public hearing, and every year you guys approve it, but you also put the stipulation that they have to come back the next year, but they never change anything. And it is a special permit, so they keep filing the same special permit on the land records. We were wondering if, since they're continually not changing anything, maybe that we could administratively approve through a zoning permit.
Under the administrative
doing
approval, that was the conditions. If they made no changes, we didn't want to see it again.
Okay.
So
If that's the case, because sometimes they will come back and they want outside displays and so
Right.
forth like that. But the conditioning was that if nothing changed, then go
Yeah.
ahead.
I think the actual conditions on the special permit said that they have to operate between certain dates, and then the special permit was like void, and they'd have to come back because they were operating outside of those dates. So,
Well, I know
Yeah.
dates are a concern, all right, not mine.
yeah. So if you guys just want to allow administrative approval, then that would be easiest for everyone.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor? Okay, but
It's done.
you don't need to come back for that. AAA,
Okay. So, AAA, as you know, you approved their site plan, and they are also adding to the compensatory storage that was along Hazard Avenue. They already have compensatory storage for when they put the Chick-fil-A in, and they were looking to expand it. I guess when it came down to it, based on their site plan and the amount of compensatory storage they would need to add, it all just became too expensive, and so they have proposed minor site changes to reduce the amount of compensatory storage needed, and therefore how much, reducing the amount of compensatory storage they have to add to the plans. We do have they did give us a plan showing that.
It was underwater 2 weeks after we approved it. Cars got flooded and got towed out, and now they want to reduce it?
No, what they want to reduce it from what they propose. It will still be,
They proposed a zero change.
No,
There was
in
increase or
discharge.
decrease to what they were doing with that site. If
Yeah.
they're gonna decrease, then it's not a zero anymore, they're gonna be adding
So are you talking flood storage or storm drainage?
flood storage.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're on the right topic.
Yeah, compass stories,
They're not going to
storage.
see that. Bring
Yeah,
it
I
up
thought
to-
they were going to increase underground storage.
Well, it was supposed to be a net zero, and that's where I.
Oh,
Right,
well,
that's where they,
you know-
when they increased it.
Make it
Maybe
better.
so.
Well, now they want to decrease.
What did the engineers, our engineering gone over this?
Let me just grab the mic. So we haven't distributed this. We only just met with them yesterday regarding this change, and they gave us those plans. But basically what's changing, they're keeping the same amount of parking spaces, but they are, they had originally proposed to the, I believe it's to the north of their building, a row of parking and then a retaining wall along that row. And then, but that would require them to bring in too much fill, and I guess the cost of the retaining wall was a lot. So they want to change that, and instead of having that extra row of parking directly adjacent to their use, they want to bring their curb closer to the building and then have a slope down to the parking area below. They wouldn't necessarily be removing any parking or anything. It would just be the parking is farther away. And they're also proposing changes to the islands to the west, I believe. So I guess all of that amounts to them needing less compensatory storage overall because they're bringing in less fill. That's how they explained it. So they were just looking to see if this was something you would
So
want to
fill,
see
it's not just a
come
change.
before you.
And I'm looking at this site plan because I remember looking at that plan, and they created a moat with their building in terms of they raised the building out of the ground, and then they had a retaining wall that went around the periphery of the building. And I'm looking at this, and somehow they have like active, I guess, repair bays or something that they're changing oil into something that came in. You come in one side or you come
Yeah,
and then go
right.
through. So if they were grading it gradually, then each bay would be at a different elevation unless they had some big hump or something that goes up. So I'm thinking that I would like to see that the regrading of the area. So.
Updated site plan.
Right, and I think that the entire commission should see that rather than just administrative review, and if that's my opinion.
Well, again.
You want to see
this
this as
is what
site
I'm
plan
saying,
modification? Okay.
Because it's really not just that. 'Cause Kenny's right, it did. It flooded right after we had
2 weeks
allowed it.
later, it was underwater and cars were being towed out.
And if they're decreasing the amount of water storage,
Well, I think that the only thing they could do is they wouldn't be able to raise everything up as high as they did before. So they would have to make significant changes in the grading around the building. And, and at one point it was more or less level around the building. And now all of a sudden, if everything's grading away, I just like to see the grading myself, just to review that.
Okay. So I'll grab those plans and replace it with this sketch for Stop and Shop.
okay. Okay, Stop and Shop.
What's his nose?
So this one's a little more straightforward than AAA. Basically, in other towns, you'll see Stop and Shop has their Peapod service. I guess they've, instead of only delivering Peapod groceries to whoever the customers are who use Peapod, they want to allow Peapod customers to also pick up their groceries. So they're proposing lockers in one portion exterior of the building that are refrigerated to hold the groceries, and they want to designate 4 parking spaces in the parking lot for Peapod pickup with signage and markings on the pavement. So we were just wondering if you really wanted to see that, or if you would allow us to administratively approve.
What Walmart's doing.
This is, what color is the building is the only thing I had asked earlier.
It's beige and
It is
a little bit
beige,
of
okay,
brick.
you were
There are
right. I
some
thought it
bricks
was
too.
No, Stop and Shop?
Lockers that they're putting in.
The there's
Lockers are
a,
green, that's,
Right.
yeah.
They follow the P-pod.
Yeah.
Right, I didn't know that, but they're not attached to the building. Is that a handicap park,
no, they're not handicap spaces.
Oh, that's where they're gonna put them?
out in the parking lot there?
Yeah, it
It
says
looks like
adjacent
it's
to the
down the south
building.
end of the store where they have that recess
I
where
know it
people
says
sit and smoke.
adjacent to the
Adjacent to the
building.
building implies next to the building, but it's not.
It is, in terms of, there's
Right
one,
here.
yeah, there's one thing right
Okay.
there, and then there's the
Yeah.
parking.
What-
Oh, the spaces.
all right,
Oh,
okay.
Okay, thanks, Rich.
Well, let me see them then.
Yeah, that makes sense,
Where?
because I would think they'd open into the store so they can load the lockers from inside.
Oh, all right.
Right up against the store.
Yeah, it's
And
there.
that walkway there that's very wide right now.
Oh, all
Where they're
right.
gonna put the lockers, and then this is where the proposed parking is gonna be.
Okay, I looked at it too
Oh,
fast.
so, okay, yeah, because it says,
There is handicap spaces directly opposite that, but there's a bunch of
well,
them,
that's
so
what I
it's
thought. It
not like
says
there's a shortage of them.
It says proposed pub spaces, but,
And
okay.
The lockers are over here.
Oh,
Yeah,
just
I
okay.
did the same thing too
I
fast.
looked at the lines and didn't read.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we allow for that administration review.
Second.
Motion's made, seconded, all in favor? Good, we give you some more work. Keep you busy. Got nothing else? 1772, 115 Elm Street.
So this one is pretty straightforward. 115 Elm Street is one of those office medical buildings that are right adjacent to the Kohl's Plaza, sort of right behind where Denny's and Burger King are.
Okay.
They want to put a medical spa in there. We felt that that fell under a medical use, and that's really what the whole building is anyway. So we were looking for authorization to administratively approve that, unless you feel that it should come before you.
What kind of a,
Yeah, interesting name, the Blush Med Spa.
yeah, what kind of, is it a medical office? Because the place is, the whole building is medical.
Or are they just using that term to put a spot in there?
Yeah, that's,
Did I put the plans?
I was wondering why you would come to us anyway, because if it's medical,
Well, a medical spa to me is physical therapy. Right?
This
I
is
don't
a
know
new
what it
day
means.
spa and beauty services, though. Maybe they're gonna do enhancements and reductions, you know?
I just don't, I mean, I'm not too familiar with this, but if they're gonna just put the word medical in front of it to get it to go in a medical building and it doesn't meet the requirement,
that's why,
I would have a problem with it. But if it meets the requirement, it doesn't really matter.
no, but if it was really medical, I didn't know why they came to us, they just put it in there.
Is that property zoned differently than the plaza where Kohl's is?
Yeah,
Separate properties.
No, it's not.
So,
So,
But they are separate properties.
yeah.
so.
They are separate
Each
properties,
all-
yeah.
So if it's zoned the same, then it would be allowed in the plaza, right?
Well, that's why I asked, if it doesn't matter whether it says medical or not, and you can put a spa in there, it doesn't matter. I'm good,
that's what, I mean, yeah.
so it doesn't matter.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we allow for administrative approval of that site plan review 1772.
It says beauty services, oh, it sounds, I don't know what they're doing, all right.
Second?
Does it say what the activity is? I mean, I don't know what we're approving.
Yeah.
Is it a beauty? Yeah,
That's why I asked, because I think it's a beauty salon spa. And they
yeah,
put the
I
word
don't,
medical in front of it.
yeah,
But like Lori said, it doesn't matter whether it's medical or not, it's allowed, so.
I know, but I'd like to just,
Maybe
to
they're
know
gonna
what
do
kind of a
injections and
business
stuff
you're
and
approving.
Botox injections and stuff.
Look at the bright side, Robert Kraft may come to town.
No, that's what,
No, we don't need any football teams.
okay.
We already
we're-
did
we're
that.
Still on here. Okay, yeah, all in favor. Let them worry about it.
Do they have a name or anything for him to give him a free?
It's, your
trial?
na- it's,
Yep. It's
Yeah.
Blush Med Spa. And, yeah, so they're proposing the medical spa and also with beauty services as well. So I guess it's a blend of both.
Wonder
How
what's
many
making
square
them
feet are they
blush.
taking?
what's the medical part? This
One
beauty-
So they could do both types.
1,040 square feet.
Good size place.
Okay, well, you got the approval anyway. The last one is 90 Elm Street. Oh,
already
yeah,
did
we
that.
did that. Any to be received?
We received Pride gas station, or their Pride Bakery, again, late in the week last week. So they've submitted their application, and they will be coming before you soon.
Lori, would you go through the history of this so that you're aware of it? Because there was a traffic survey, a traffic engineer, and then he withdrew it.
Right.
Probably
We've
should
had
have an ART
ARTs,
on
we've
that one.
had.
And you should have an ART on that one because
Yeah, we already have, yep.
you've already had it?
Yep. We've had we've actually had 2 ARTs on this,
How-
and
Recently, though?
Just off your top of your
Yeah.
head, how different is this from the last time we talked?
it's pretty different, especially concerning parking, because we met with the town attorney to discuss what exactly we can allow. The state line runs partially through their property.
Yes, it does.
Pretty much, the town attorney has said we can't look at anything north of the state line at all. We can't include if the parking is halfway over the state line, but halfway in Connecticut, they can't count. Everything that we are looking at has to be only in Connecticut on that property.
We had been working with,
But they bought the houses in
Massachusetts.
back, right?
Yep, yeah, still in Enfield, yep. So they took 4 different properties, and you guys approved the merger of the 4.
because the entrances and exits were a major concern up there.
Yeah, so they took out,
The traffic lights are really not in the right place. But,
Yep.
because, well, Linda isn't here, but you come out of there on you got a green light coming out of Booth, and they're cutting they pay no attention to the red light because they're going in.
Can't be using
They're
your
into the
phone there,
gas
that's for
station, so
sure.
they're cutting right in front of you. I almost got hit one tonight, but,
Yeah.
all right.
so, yeah, staff has worked with the applicant since the last application. I'm not sure if they'll make it to the next agenda or not. We are still waiting on a traffic report, so once we
It's
get that,
crazy.
we
They
can
got a right
proceed.
turn light to go take a right down Booth. But if people are stopped to go in the gas station to make a left turn doing it correctly, people come out, jump out of that lane and go in the right turn lane and keep going into Long Meadow. I mean, so it's a crazy, crazy place up there. All right, okay.
I want to go on the record. I'm going to put in a request to the town attorney to see if there's a conflict, because I actually own that building, the entire
Yes, you did.
parcel, about 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's been sold for years, and there's really no relationship, no monetary gain.
Well,
But-
you're not making any money on it, so no.
But I still want to put it on the record. I want a town attorney's opinion, and I may end up recusing myself depending on what his answer or his or
He the
her
one that bought
answer.
it from you?
Pride bought it from me, yes.
Okay.
So-
Okay. I mean, that was a major thing that we had trouble with before, was like traffic flow and in and out and on Route 5 and the rest, but, and he wanted extra tanks, but that was up to Long Meadow, and I don't know what that was. We had nothing to do. And Long Meadow was working with us, so
I will say, when I owned the building that my real estate company and mortgage company were in, I had the same issue with the town of Long Meadow, because I did a complete build-out inside the building, and before I purchased the building, it was a fireworks company. And the state actually came in and ran a piece of red tape right down the property line, right through the center of the building, and all fireworks had to be 10 feet on that side of it because they were illegal in one state and legal in the other. So the town of Long Meadow ended up agreeing they would let the town of Enfield oversee all the construction and everything because the majority of the building I owned was in Enfield. But if he's going to merge his Long Meadow gas station with this property, that's not the case anymore because he owns quite a bit of property in Long Meadow too.
Oh, yeah.
So
And he bought the houses in back of this place.
he bought
now.
well, the two family behind it, I sold him with the building. And then he bought the little ranch behind that for a buffer zone or something like that.
Yeah, he only needed, yeah.
Yeah.
The, what else? Do you remember anything else that was going on at the time? Because it's been a while since he's been in here.
Be a new hearing anyway.
I know, it'll be a new hearing anyway, but it's just things that Lynn should be brought up to date on, that's all. Okay, is he ready?
No?
You have nothing to gain either way.
I just want it on the record, you know how people, so.
Jen, is he ready to come in?
At the moment, no, we're still waiting on that traffic report, so once we get the traffic report, we'll review it, and
Is he redoing a traffic report?
I believe that's part of the reason why we don't have it yet.
Maybe he's coming in before the tolls go up, because then Route 5 is going to increase.
Oh my God. Well, they're talking about closing exit 49.
Really?
Yeah, but they'll
Yeah.
still, yeah, they get the Long Meadow money. So that would increase the traffic going by there.
You know what we all know what the intersection's like in the morning and at night.
Oh, yeah, that's
You
what I was
close
saying.
exit 49 and imagine what's gonna happen there?
That's what I was saying, come out there at
What's going to do to 48?
time going out. And with the gas station, does a good business too, with other Connecticut customers. Okay,
So other than that, the town manager is looking to get on the next agenda to discuss the capital improvements
Okay.
with you. So that's upcoming.
well, that would be odd.
I think we should make them wait a couple meetings.
Ooh.
The town
The
manager.
manager.
I don't know, Lori?
Our staff is too busy and too overworked to get him on the agenda right now. Unless he's willing to give us another position, he's gonna have to
No.
wait.
Oh, yeah, we.
Right? It's our only
That's
shot.
for sure.
I try.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's for
Chris.
sure. I don't know. All right. Anything else?
Not from staff.
I guess.
Can't adjourn, Mary's not here.
Any problems? Oh, then we're okay. We can adjourn, yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.